Thursday, February 27, 2014, 5:45 a.m. There was a link on my Facebook feed the other day to an article which talked about one's tendency to wake just before the alarm clock. It seems this is actually a function of stress hormones. I guess it's not surprising I'm waking well before time. This morning I was up at 5:30 a.m. I just couldn't sleep anymore, even though I wanted to. The net result is that I'm now at the computer in the basement, waiting to see if there are any more messages. Eventually, one downloads. It's from D1. Hi D2. Good to hear that you're doing well. Your boss sounds like a nice guy, a total opposite of Dixon. Shame you haven't seen much of Justine, but it's probably for the best. You know what I'm thinking about without me having to say it. I'm having a blast in KL, although the work hours are long. Boy, oh boy, has Brad ever stuffed up? Do you know why negotiations have broken down with the subcontractors? Essentially, they're refusing to comply with really basic fundamental contractual terms, ones that CIQ has used for years. You know, like delays and extensions of time, operations before completion, and quality of material and workmanship. Can you guess why? Because Brad left them out. I called him up at home, he's still off sick, and asked what the fuck happened. It takes a lot to rub these clauses off the precedent accidentally, as you know. Throws out the section breaks and auto-numbering for a start. And he just said, I didn't feel they were necessary. It seems they didn't fit his flow chart. When I said they were vital, he said, adopt pompous voice now, I beg to differ. What a dick. Anyway, against all odds, I think I might still be able to patch things up here by using future contracts as leverage. We'll see. Negotiations are difficult because you have to take into account the local cultural factors, including such things as humiliation caused by backing down. They're also pissed off because of the disrespect Brad has shown them. I have one of his letters in front of me where he tells them off for not knowing the Queen's common law, which he seems to think requires them to comply with the contractual terms he left out of the written agreement, and that they would know this if they lived in a country where English is actually spoken. Looks like I still have a lot of cleaning up to do here, mate. Talking about our best friend, you know the medical condition he ended up having? An enlarged spleen caused by a couple of cysts. He'll be off work for many weeks yet, even though he only had day surgery. Anyway, I've been thinking, mate, I don't think it would creep me out to Skype. Let's try it. I really need someone to talk to, and I figure, hey, why not talk to myself? Hope to catch up soon. Smiley face, D1. Okay, I know what you're thinking. I'm lying by omission. Actually, let's be honest here. I'm straight out lying. It seems I've even started lying to myself. How wrong is that? I really wish I didn't have to, but I'm not sure if I have an option. I pretty much know that D1 wouldn't get what I'm thinking or feeling. We'd start quarreling. Consider the chiding he gave me just for saying I'm thinking of you. Clearly he didn't have a clue what it was like being in my shoes. This is all disappointing. I mean, you'd think I could confide in myself, wouldn't you? But it is what it is. I suppose we are the sum of our experiences, and D1 and I stopped sharing our direct experiences more than a week ago. We are now the sum of different parts. In this respect, it strikes me that we're like two objects diverging from a single point. While only a tiny angle separates our trajectories, we're already miles apart. Within a month, we'll even be out of radio range. Meanwhile, D1 thinks we're still able to shout instructions to each other, and that we'll stay that way, presumably forever. I'm his mirror image, someone who will prop up his failing life, someone on whom he can vent his frustrations, someone he can talk to. Well, here's the irony. I also need someone to talk to, and what I really need to talk about is the whole wretched business of lying. It's killing me, and not because I'm afraid of being caught out. I just don't want to do it anymore. It isn't fair. I don't want to lie to Mrs. Chu, I don't want to lie to Branca, and I don't want to lie to Silvio. Most of all, I don't want to lie to Justine. I just want to be a regular person. It seems that even Frank can be a regular person, within certain bounds anyway. Okay, his name is now Samir, but so what? At least he doesn't have to pretend he is single. Isn't that what Ian McRae is doing? How am I any different? I can try to dress it up in philosophical niceties, but the facts are undeniable. I am Dan Djurdjevic, so is D1. They're both the same person. They're both married to Kylie. We both agreed to this subterfuge. There was even a pinky promise involved. We basically signed our names in blood on this particular contract. I'm not a copy so much as a miserable fraud, a forgery. A week ago, I couldn't have imagined that if anything was going to pour cold water on my infatuation with Justine, it would be my own conscience. Consider that on Saturday night, I left the SP feeling miserable because it was all about me. Since Monday's lunch with Silvio, I've been miserable because of me. It seems pretty obvious now. I have no right to Justine's affections. I can't help her. I can only inflict damage. I can't even be a real friend. I can only be a facsimile of one. And so I'm pretty much resigned to this. I'll have to remain detached. For this very reason, I've been keeping my head low and focusing on work these last few days. Justine even made good her promise to catch up by inviting me to have lunch with her and Branka, but I said I had to finish something and couldn't make it. My immediate problem is that I have Justine and her brother coming over for dinner tomorrow night. This isn't exactly consistent with being detached. Oh well, I'll just have to get through it as best I can. I've bitten off a piece of turd, and now I have no choice but to swallow it. I'm beginning to understand Deda Zdravko's idiom. So what am I going to do? I'll give some pointers to young Tsar, as much as I can anyway, but I'll have to avoid making more promises of help. Maybe I'll have to lie again and say that my house-sitting stint is coming to an end. I don't know. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Whichever way it goes, tomorrow night cannot be repeated. It has to be a one-off. I'll play the role of genial host. I'll see what advice I can offer the budding young musicians. I'll be agreeable company to Justine. But after that, I'll let the whole connection to these people fade away. To do otherwise would be unfair. Even if by some miracle Justine were to become interested in me, no one should have to have a relationship with a copy. Everyone deserves the original, just as they deserve the truth. Speaking of copies, I can't help feeling a sense of resentment about this issue. Why am I D2? What makes me expendable? After all, I'm just as much Dan Djurdjevic as the other guy. Yes, I know, pinky promise and all that. But promise doesn't change the facts. I walked into that booth and walked straight out again. It was seamless. There wasn't even a momentary interruption of my thoughts and memories. The other guy's experience was identical. So what makes me a copy and him the original? As if to prove a point, the screen goes black as the power saver mode comes on, and I'm left staring at my face reflected in the darkened glass. I'm indisputably the wrong way round. But then it suddenly occurs to me that what I'm seeing is in fact an accurate image. If you held up a photo of D1 next to it, they would be indistinguishable. By contrast, when D1 looks in the mirror, he's seeing an image that is horizontally flipped. Surely that must count for something. In other words, isn't this mirror image thing all about perspective? I have an idea, and I look down at my watch. It's 5:56 a.m. I know that Rio is 14 hours behind us, so that makes it 3:56 p.m. over there. Maybe Frank is home. I decide to open Skype and see. It feels like an interminable wait while the program loads. When it does, there is another wait for the online list to be refreshed. For a long time, his name, Samir in Rio, remains grayed out. In fact, it takes so long that I go to shut down the program. I really should be getting ready. But just as I reach for the mouse, it turns green and gets elevated to the top of the list. I'm in luck. I press the call button and listen to Skype's unique musical notes, and then the long beeping dial tone. It seems to go on for too long. Presumably Frank is gone, but left his computer on. Again I consider shutting down, but suddenly I hear an abrupt blip, and Frank comes online. At first the screen is black, and all I can hear is his voice. "Nephew, you there?" I'm answering as the video feed comes on. I can now see him on his porch. Yep, sure am, Frank. What's happening? The sun is angled sharply onto his face, and he is holding one hand up to shield his eyes. The screen shudders as Frank moves his notebook and chair around. That's better. Hey, how are you, buddy? Having a great time, I hope? He's shirtless, and I can see the scar on his chest, still pink and raised. Some blackened stitches are visible on the edges. Sure am, I say. I'm conscious that whenever I speak to Frank, I start copying his manners, like turning my head in a kind of short, sideways movement when agreeing, often with a quick wink. This is a very Australian thing that Frank does. There's a good lad. I'm having to take it easy, on doctor's orders. She says I've overdone it lately and I need to slow down. But you know me, I could never sit still. You're the same. Ha ha, you sure know me. At this comment, my uncle suddenly becomes subdued. His laugh fades to a smile. Are you okay, Frank? He sounds like an old dog sighing as it stretches out on a rug by a fire. How I've missed you, my friend. I've been waiting so long to reconnect, for it to be the way it used to be. You know, if it weren't for the fact that the printing process seems to stress my heart, I'd be out to visit you in a flash. Give it a month and I probably will do just that. You can bet on it. As he says this, Frank seems to be wiping a tear from his eye. This is followed by an awkward silence that lingers like the afterglow of a light bulb. Ah, but you didn't call to watch an old guy get sentimental. I can tell his voice is choking slightly, and he's still wiping his eyes. Frank, do you mind me asking you something? Oh, you sound serious now. Go ahead, ask me anything. Why didn't you just tell me about this, all of it? I gesture about the room. Why didn't you take me with you on this journey? You mean, why did I let you marry Kylie? Or, after that, why didn't I tell you to divorce her? Or, after you discovered the house and the printing machine, why didn't I tell you to escape your loveless marriage by printing yourself to Melbourne? He's smiling as he says this. If I couldn't see his face, I'd wonder if he was becoming angry. No, that's not what I meant at all. Then I pause for a moment and add quietly, well, maybe it is what I meant. What would have been wrong with that anyway? Would have saved me a lot of bother. Frank takes a deep breath, leans in closer to the camera and says, You've known me all your life, Dan. When have I ever told you what to do? Well, be honest, really honest, with yourself. Have I ever said, do this or do that? Have I ever imposed any opinion on you? You always told me your opinion. Ah, yes, but have I ever said that it should be your opinion? I think for a while. I remember the late-night discussions, sitting in his darkened Northbridge lounge room in front of the silent 80s television set, on his gently rocking boat moored at Rottnest, at his clunky old Windows 98 computer. It was always the same. Frank had strong views, but they were uniquely his. The most he ever did was give me pearls of wisdom, truisms. He never once tried to connect them with specific instructions or suggestions. No, I say at last. You've never told me what to do. So why would I start now? To save me? At this suggestion, Frank starts laughing hard. Don't do that to me. You'll make me tear my stitches. After he's settled down, he says more seriously, You know full well that the only person who can save you is you. If you want to change your life, you must first change yourself. Yes, exactly. Frank is nodding. Abruptly he asks, Is that something I told you? No, I just made it up. Ah, ha ha, he laughs again. Then, dear nephew, you already know everything I know. The rest, he waves his hand, is just a matter of detail. Sure, I could have influenced you to take some particular action, but you would have been doing it for me, not for yourself. Remember what the hunters and collectors said. Only you can change the way you live. And now you have. He waves his hand expressively in front of the camera. Thanks, Frank. Look, there are a couple of things I need to tell you. Important things.
Do they relate to a certain girl?
You could say that, but there's more.
A certain glamorous young woman named Justine.
How do you know about Justine?
She was my lawyer, remember?
Holy crap. Hang on. She said she never met Picklejig.
Ah, but she did meet his assistant, Carl, didn't she?
You sly dog.
The moment you mentioned McMahon's, I wondered if you would be drawn by her considerable magnetism. I tell you, had I been a couple of decades younger...
Frank.
Yes, I know, it's always gross when an older person starts expressing their sexuality. Trust me, you'll get there one day and wonder what the fuss was all about. In the meantime, tell me, have you had her over to your place yet?
As a matter of fact, she's coming over tomorrow night for dinner.
Who's the sly dog now?
Frank is grinning.
What are you cooking?
Pugnine paprika.
Baba Vera's recipe?
Yes, well, my variant anyway.
It's always going to be somebody's variant.
Heck, Baba Vera's recipe was a variant.
Anyway, good choice. So what else did you want to tell me?
Well, I needed some advice, I suppose. But it'll have to wait. I'm going to be late for work. The latter part is true. I'm looking down at my watch and notice that it is now 6:45 a.m. I have to eat breakfast, go to the toilet, shave, get dressed.
It'll keep till next time then, says Frank. I'm sure you don't need my advice anyway. You seem to be managing just fine without it.
I don't know about that.
Trust yourself. You've gotten this far, haven't you? She wouldn't be coming over to dinner if she didn't like you.
We'll see. I'll catch you later, Frank.
Oi, before you go, did you do as I suggested and make a copy of yourself?
Sure did.
That must be the recording I saw on the network. Good boy. Have you seen a doctor?
No, not yet, Frank. Remember, I've only been here a week or so.
Okay, but do another copy today, okay, for me. Promise?
Promise. I note the irony of Frank telling me to do something for him, but I say nothing. Catch you later, Frank. He does his trademark sideways head movement and wink, and the connection is broken. As always, there was so much more I wanted to talk to Frank about. The nature of being a copy was at the top of the list. Also the idea he hinted at of a grip reflex in humans. I'm starting to get the feeling that I understand what he might have meant, that maybe I'd like to let go of things as they are. The problem is, I don't see a way to do that at the moment. All I can do is put my fingers in my ears, close my eyes and shout, la 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 la. There has to be a better way than that. At the same time, I'll be damned if I end up some copy to be thrown on a scrap heap. I got myself into this mess. Now I need to find a way out. But how? There are two of us, when there should be only one. Maybe I can be up front with Frank. Maybe he'll understand. I can go and live with him and leave D1 to his miserable world. But that would involve erasing myself and making another copy. I just don't know anymore. Right now I have to get to work. But before I do this, I have a promise to keep. I open Profile Generator 3.2, select the record option, then walk towards the booth. At least I can do this one thing for Frank.